Okay, so you've heard enough of me. So this is a great opportunity to welcome two guests to the United States, to California, and to Northridge, right? Have you ever heard of Northridge before? No. All right. So George Dove is here with his mom, Emma, and George is an unbelievable advocate for diabetes, right? They live in Mansfield, England, and George has done a lot of work for the JDRF and as an advocate for diabetes. He was diagnosed at, I think, eight years old. He'll tell you his whole story about the pump and those things. He was in Washington, D.C. just a couple days ago at the Children's Congress. That's a picture of, George is in that picture. That's kind of the international contingent, right? So I know you're disappointed not to meet Obama or see Obama, but he made it to Washington, D.C. But we're happy to have him here in California. And so George is going to tell you about his experience. So don't forget, George is on the Vail, right? So like the 530G that's coming here. And he is wearing a sensor today. I saw that. So I had dinner with them, both Emma and George last night, and learned a lot about them, and really great people. And so I will you see some stats on George here, what kind of pump he uses, infusion set, and uses CareLink. So we're all set to ask some questions for him after. So I will introduce George. I'm going to play a quick video first, when George was a little bit younger, I think. All right, here's George.
Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. That was me 4 years ago. A lot's changed since then. Firstly, I don't need a box to stand on, and hopefully my voice is a little deeper. One thing that hasn't changed is my passion and determination to raise awareness of type 1. So I'm just going to take you on my journey so far. I remember my D-Day, diagnosis day, like it was yesterday. It's a day I shall never forget, as it was the day my life changed forever. 1st of August 2006, aged 8. My symptoms were quite simple: an unquenchable thirst, frequently going to the toilet, weight loss, and unexplainable tiredness. My mum took me to the doctors to see what was wrong. They took my blood sugar, which was 24, and I had to be admitted to the hospital straight away. I asked my mum if we could go to a local newsagents and bookstore first, because I needed a new book, and I knew, even at age 8, how much waiting there would be, and I wasn't wrong. I had a terrible needle phobia, so as you can imagine, it was very frightening. But I could never have imagined how much my life, of that and that of my family, would change that day. I vividly remember the consultant saying to my mum and dad, "This is now George's life." I thought, that's my life. That was scary. So started my life of blood sugar testing, injections, pump changes, hypers, hypos, ketones, boluses, basals, and the fine art of balancing carbs. I initially started on 2 injections a day, which I found really restrictive. Because I had to have the injections at the same time every day, well, within an hour, and because I was at school, my morning injection was at 7 a.m, and the latest I could have it was 8 a.m. That meant no more lie-ins, not even at the weekends. After 2 years on this strict regime, I went on to 4 injections a day. I know this meant double the injections, but in return it gave me more freedom. I had to learn carb counting, as I would have to calculate how much insulin I had to everything I ate. This was fine, but if I wanted an extra treat like an ice cream or something out of meal times, I'd have to weigh up whether it was worth an extra injection. It was still restrictive. One of my worst memories whilst on multiple injections is when I was about 10, my mum came in to wake me up, and I could hear her, and then I could hear her call my dad. I could hear them frantically calling me, but I didn't understand how they couldn't hear me. It was like I was trapped inside my own body, but I couldn't do anything to reach them. I was so frightened, I slept next to my mum's bed for the next 6 months, holding her hand every night before I went to sleep, afraid I was going to go to sleep and never wake up. It's horrible to talk about this, but I think people need to know what we go through. My greatest wish was to get an insulin pump. As soon as I was diagnosed, I went on the internet to research my condition and saw Medtronic insulin pumps. I knew that was what I wanted. Medtronic were and still are the front runners for the closed loop system. And on my very first visit with my consultant, I went in with all the information. I hadn't even spoken to my parents, as I wanted to check what the consultant had to say. To my disappointment, they said they didn't do pump therapy at my hospital and that I'd have to wait. I asked every 3 months for the following 4 years, but to no avail. Meanwhile, JDRF put me in touch with a charity called Input, and once I knew I met the NICE guidelines and I couldn't be refused a pump, I went back to clinic to say that I was grateful for their care, but I'd be moving on to another hospital which did pump therapy. Very sheepishly, the hospital admitted that they had in fact done pump therapy for some time, and coincidentally enough, I was given a pump within the next couple of months, 3rd of August 2010. Getting a pump was amazing. It completely changed my life, and within 5 months my HbA1c was within range, something I hadn't achieved in 4 years. My parents noticed a huge change in me, and just 2 weeks after getting my insulin pump, my mum and dad said they hadn't realised how much of me they'd lost until they'd seen it come back. I felt like a weight had been lifted. I could be more spontaneous. I felt better in the mornings when I woke up, as my sugars had been more stable throughout the night. I didn't have to wake up knowing I would have to have at least 4 injections a day. It gave me back my childhood. I've only had my pump for 3 years now, almost, but it's already meant that I haven't had to inject 4,380 times. You can only imagine how that feels, and I can tell you it feels absolutely fantastic. Talking of wishes, it was my mum's wish to run the London Marathon before she was 40. Every year she would watch it on the TV and say how much she'd love to do it, so I said, well, do it. You know, she said she couldn't, the usual excuse, no time. I gave her my puppy dog eyes and said, do it for me, do it for a charity. How could she resist? I set about choosing a charity. I found Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, JDRF. This was the charity for me, as they are the only charity looking for a cure, and without a cure, I'll have this all my life. As my dad, sister Libby and I waited in the baking sun for 6 hours in the JDRF supporter zone, believe me, it was hard for us too. An unbreakable bond was made. My enthusiasm for JDRF and raising awareness of type 1 was picked up by the chairman of the Nottinghamshire Stars, and my campaign began with the speech that you just saw. I'm now an ambassador for JDRF and have been for a couple of years. They've given me some fantastic opportunities and I'm proud to represent them. Over the last 4 years, I've taken part in 15 radio shows and a podcast for World Diabetes Day, tested the Digit Sugar Machine for Bayer, appeared in Business Week in America, spoke at JDRF events, Discovery Days and pitched for Charity of the Year, met the Jonas Brothers, set up my own walk to cure diabetes in my area. This year will be my 4th annual walk. Spoken at the local Women's Institute and Rotary Club. Won YOPI, the Junior Young Person of the Year, and I've raised about £40,000 to £45,000. As well as JDRF, I support Input. This is a charity that helps people like me know their rights and point them in the right direction so they can get access to insulin pumps that they so desperately want and need. Without their help, I wouldn't have got mine. It was only by knowing my rights and challenging my hospital that resulted in me getting my pump. I feel this is so wrong. Pumps should be available to anybody who wants them. When I see how much it's changed my life, it saddens me that they aren't available to everybody. Since getting my pump, it's added another path to my campaign, raising awareness of pumps and showing how they can improve your life. Earlier this year, I was asked with Input to help them at a roadshow, which was amazing. I felt like I made a difference. I spoke to people about their worries and tried to explain the benefits and how it changed my life. I met a set of parents who were very adamant that they didn't want their child to have a pump, so I asked them what the fears were, what they were worried about, and told them the benefits, and when they left, they were very pump positive, so glad to make a difference. My biggest speech would have to be at the GMB Union Conference in 2010, where I spoke in front of about 700 people. Between you and I cried for the 4 hours leading up to the speech. But once I was up there, I was fine, and I raised an incredible £26,000 in an afternoon and raised awareness to thousands of people through their magazine. Last year was great. I was chosen to meet the Duchess of Cornwall with a girl called Amy. We both told her our stories and explained what it's like to live with type 1. And it was a fabulous opportunity for me, and she very kindly agreed to become the president of JDRF for the next 5 years. To have her publicity will hopefully raise the profile of the charity and in turn this terrible condition. I was also asked to co-chair a new event that JDRF organised called T1 Parliament. This was absolutely fantastic. I went along with 60 other children and young adults to speak to the members of Parliament in England to let them know what it's like to raise awareness. To have a chance to explain to them how important the funding is was a fantastic opportunity. It's an ongoing project of JDRF, and I hope that we can just get through to the people who hold the purse strings how important it is to find a cure. People ask me what it's like to have type 1, so I'll try to explain. You notice that I very rarely use the word diabetes. This is because as soon as I do, it opens up a whole other debate. As soon as I mention diabetes, people say, "What, you have diabetes? Well, you're not old or overweight. Did your mum give you too many sweets as a child?" This really, really frustrates me, and I just try to explain the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Then I get, "Oh yes, my grandma has that," or one of my personal favourites, "Our dog has that." So I try to stick to, I have type 1. Then at least I get a chance to explain. I tell them I didn't get it by anything I did or didn't do. I was simply just unlucky. I have to take my blood sugar around 8 times a day, and I wear my insulin pump 24/7, moving it every 2 to 3 days. I count all the carbohydrates in everything I eat and put the value into my pump so I hopefully simulate my pancreas the best I can. I have around 14 basal ratios and 3 different bolus ratios for meals. So it's a good job I'm in for an A star in maths, isn't it? Despite all my hard work, some days I'm just not in control, and I can have either hypos or hypers. Hypos are where my blood sugar falls below 4. They say below 4, hit the floor. The worst thing is you just don't know when they're going to happen. Yes, I get the warning signs, but you don't know when you get up in the morning whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day. When I have a hypo, I get clammy, my vision can go, I can lose the ability to speak, and I become disoriented. To an onlooker, I may appear drunk or on drugs, and I know this is a worry to my parents, as people might not help me, and if left untreated, I could go into a coma. There have been occasions when I've had bad hypos on the way home from school, and my friends have tried to get me home, and they've had to call my mum, and she's had to sadly see people looking at me with, disgust and distaste because they think I'm under the influence. Hypers are the opposite. High blood sugar over 12 and 14. This is bad because if not corrected quickly, can cause ketones in the blood, which may lead to ketoacidosis, and this could kill me. All sounds scary, and it is, but not as scary as my future without a cure. They say I have reduced life expectancy of 20 to 15 years. I face problems with my heart, liver, kidneys, possible blindness and amputation. So you can see why finding a cure is so important to me, along with the research that gives me better quality of life until a cure is found. My pump gives me the best chance. My reduced life expectancy is dramatically lowered, and so are the risks of complications. Today, my HbA1c is 6.8, which is amazing. This is because of my insulin pump and the control I can achieve with it. With injections, I injected 2 types of insulin a day. One which was long-lasting, which stayed in my system for 24 hours, acting as a background, and a fast-acting, which I had to have with food to counteract the carbohydrates I'd eaten. Once you put the long-lasting insulin into your system, it's in your system and can't be taken out. The problem with this is I've got no way of knowing what tomorrow may bring. If I did a different sport in PE or say had to run for the bus, etc., things like that, my body would already have the insulin in my system and therefore would result in me having extra hypos if something unusual happened. The problem with the fast-acting insulin is that it only works in my system for about 20 minutes, which is okay for most meals. But if I had pasta or I went to a party and I was having sort of a buffet, my food would still be releasing the carbohydrates for an hour and a half, but my insulin would have stopped working after 20 minutes, meaning my blood sugars would just be absolutely everywhere. But with the pump, I can do it on a split, so I can do some straight away and some over a long period of time, which means I can simulate my pancreas more accurately and control my sugars more efficiently. Type 1 doesn't just impact me. It's hard for my parents, sister, and family too. If I'm hypo or hyper at night, my mum and dad have to take either 15 or hourly blood test for as long as it takes to correct. And this can be into the early hours of the morning. I'm so used to this now, I don't even wake up. Every couple of months, I have to take fasting readings, which I can do through the day. But my mum and dad did the readings for my evening fasting. I eat at 6, then don't eat again until the next morning. I start taking my blood sugar readings at 10 and every hour until 6 in the morning. So thank you for your support. Much appreciated. I think the hardest thing with type 1 is that I can never have a day off. I can't just have one day without everything I've mentioned. I don't want to be different, so honestly I don't talk to people about it unless I'm talking to people like you. But at the same time, then not enough people know about it, which is sort of the main problem. I try to keep my daily routine to myself, so it's kind of hard to manage. So what are my plans for the future? The main things to raise awareness of type 1, JDRF and insulin pumps. So recently I've just started, I'm working with Medtronic in England, and the sensors aren't really a big thing in England yet. We're not allowed them as much. So I'm working with Medtronic and I'm doing a 3-month trial on the Enlight sensor, and I'm just trying to show sort of my hospital and the people around what the massive benefit of the sensor is, because the problem is the consultants just don't seem to care enough, or they don't have the time or energy to just learn about what it is. So I think it's really important that I've had this sensor to show them, because now they seem to know a lot more and they seem really excited, and I've just been trying to tell them this for so long. So through the help of Medtronic, I'm really going far, so thank you all for that. I've also found that I don't need the sensor all the time. I only need to wear it for, say, once a month, so 6 days a month, and I can sort of fine-tune my sugar reading, so I don't have to be attached to another thing, but I've still got the benefit of having that tight control. So it's been such a fantastic opportunity to go through, so I thank everybody here for that. Like Jeff said earlier, I went to the Children's Congress on Monday, and we actually went to Capitol Hill, was it Wednesday? And that was really interesting, because obviously I'm from the UK, so it was nice to see how everything works in America, how it's different, and with the T1 Parliament I can go back to my government and say what you're doing and how we could be more like you, and say do the things that we're not quite doing, or vice versa, say the things we're doing well, and sort of hopefully this will just push ours into working better. I also learned a lot more about the artificial pancreas project while I was there yesterday, which was really exciting. That's something I'm really looking forward to. And also I had a lot of questions about the Veo pump, because I know it's not released here, so that works with my Enlight sensor, which is really good, because I have the low glucose suspend. So the first night I got my sensor, my mum had the first night's sleep she'd ever had in 7 years, and she woke up in the morning and my pump was on suspend. It was alarming and beeping. It said I needed to call for help, but the sensor probably saved my life. I didn't hypo and nothing bad happened. So it's just fantastic to be working with Medtronic and incorporating it into everything I'm doing. So once again, thank you all very much for what you're doing. So I hope I've explained a little about what it's like to live with type 1. If you have your own charity that you give to, that's great, because all charities are important. But if you choose a different charity each year, or maybe you don't support one, maybe you could consider JDRF. I'd like to thank all the people who work at Medtronic, once again, for their hard work and commitment. My life may have changed on the 1st of August 2006, but it also changed again for the better on the 3rd of August 2010 when I received my pump. Receiving my pump was as good as a cure for me until one is found, and it's improved my life so much. So I thank you all again for your hard work and look forward enormously to the APP and things like that. I'm George Dove, 15-year-old boy with a winning smile who is much loved and well supported by his family. So thank you all for listening.
All right, I told George earlier that if he did a good job, I'd take him In-N-Out Burger after this, so he stepped it up today.